Michelle Obama raised up a generation of black women in politics, and she was said to have been a presidential contender, and she's come out. She said something she said a bunch of things during a podcast interview. One of them has people really, really interested in, is she a dude? Yeah, that's a rumor, and we should confess it's a rumor. There's a lot of people who believe she's a dude. And, of course, there's no way that a man would ever pretend to be a woman. That's just not a thing that would ever occur. It's a rumor. That's all it is. And Michelle Obama said something about black women, a lot of things about black women. But this one struck me as odd because she's actually saying the things she says black women don't say. And I'm pretty sure I've heard black women kind of communicate this maybe a lot in society.
We don't articulate as black women our pain because it's almost like nobody ever gave us permission to do that.
And does anyone care?
Yeah, there's
Will
that.
they care?
If we knew, I think we would care. If we knew.
Mm-hmm.
If we knew.
Or, yeah. And we have to ask ourselves, the men in our lives is, why wait to be asked?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like what we go through is pretty obvious. I mean, maybe we're not complaining, but we're actually living life out loud,
Mm-hmm.
I know nothing about her form of so-called black culture. I know nothing about her marriage to Barack Hussein Obama. I know nothing about that. But I do know that she has personally communicated her pain to this nation on multiple occasions, saying things like for the first time in the history of her life, she was proud of her country because Barack Hussein Obama got to be in the White House. We all heard that pain communicated. We saw her demonstrate her pain and disdain for America by refusing to cover her heart during the Pledge of Allegiance. We saw all the demonstrations of this. And I guess in her black culture, if they're not given permission for that, that's a problematic thing. That's a problem in marriages and relationships. But do you honestly believe that you don't see instances of black women communicating their pain? We could go through all the TV people that do that. The View, that's what they do, is constantly speak of their pain. But there's some other things that she said, and she talked about her and Barack Obama. There was a point where she hated the country when they were initially running for president, and the nation, just the media chose not to focus on these things. So I want to get to more of what she said because I think it's healthy to look at what she says because she's brought up a world of black leaders, including Jasmine Crockett. We'll get to something new Jasmine Crockett said because Jasmine Crockett is a constant source of pain and information and acting because she's either a Ebonics speaking person or she is not. And it's not code shifting because she's doing it performatively, which is, I think, very unhealthy for the country. There's a whole series of things that are unhealthy for the country. And in fact, Michelle Obama was one of the chief actors in destroying American healthcare with Obamacare. One of the things they did was turn doctors into pill pushers and form fillers and iPad readers. And they took away entrepreneurial doctorship by forcing doctors, if they had medical clinics, to be part of a hospital. So no doubt there came a rise of facilities that don't take insurance. So they didn't have to play that game. Direct patient care, it's called. I'm on the board, nonprofit board of a direct patient care facility. But it also gave rise to entrepreneurial doctors leaving the country. So my friend Steve Anderson, when he decided to start Renew Healthcare, he had to go to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, because one of the key things they do is use stem cells from umbilical cords, which they then culture. So there's very little risk of any dead stem cells getting in people's bodies, which is horrible, painful, bad. Secondly, the quality is extremely high. They have the advantage of turning away 80% of the umbilical cords they receive. So how's this used? Well, like people who couldn't move can now move. People who are hemispherically paralyzed can now move. People who couldn't use their hands can now use their hands, and none of this was surgery. They've also saved 3 of my listeners' lives, literally, who are about to have heart attacks. So go to renew.healthcare. It's RENUE.healthcare. Please tell them you're part of the Todd Herman Show family, and they'll tell me that, and hopefully we can meet down there. Just met a bunch of viewers and listeners down in Puerto Vallarta about a month ago. It's renew.healthcare, and it's a healthy alternative to surgery, etc. So it's fascinating to look into Michelle Obama and what she says in a podcast with other black people, because we're not invited into that realm as white people, and perhaps that's proper, but at least we can watch.
Very early on that no one was going to see beyond the color of our skin at an early age. And that could get you in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about that fear, I'm sure that fear has been tested across your life in so many different places. And I wonder, what would you say has been the most hardest recent test of that fear? Because it's not one of those fears that you kind of get over and it just goes away.
Now that's
it kind of shows its head in many different
That's interesting.
Different ways, I imagine.
Many different ways. So this is interesting to me because, of course, it's very, very obvious that this is a former First Lady of the United States of America. And I think she may, in fact, be honest here. And I think it might be one of those gaffes, those Kinsey gaffes where someone is accidentally honest. Remember, she just talked about in a previous clip, and that was from another program, by the way, where she doesn't talk about her pain because black women don't. So what's the most recent example, you, Michelle Obama, being judged only for the color of your skin?
In this current climate for me, it's, what's happening to immigrants. So it's not the fear for myself anymore. I drive around in a 4-car motorcade with a police escort. I'm Michelle Obama. I do still worry about my daughters in the world, even though they are somewhat recognizable. So my fear...
Recognizable and guarded by the Secret Service, incidentally.
...are for what I know is happening out there in streets all over the city. And now that we have leadership that is sort of indiscriminately determining who belongs and who doesn't, and we know that those decisions aren't being made with courts and with due process. And
okay, so now again we get to political lies. She starts with a little bit of honesty. I drive around in armored limousines, etc. I'm guarded. She started with some of that. She now gets into the lies. There's no due process. All these people have had due process. She gets into pretending that her husband didn't deport a bunch of people. Her husband deported 5.3 million people. But she was making a point of speaking as a black woman. Then my question here is it at all your concern that it continues to be the fact that the number one cause of death of young black men is young black men? I mean, does that concern you a bit? See, this has always been to me the perversion and the perverse tragedy Barack Hussein Obama and Michelle Obama getting to be in the White House, that they had a unique capability to stop that. Barack Obama could have given a speech in the heart of Chicago. He could have addressed the fact that the number one cause of death of young black men is young black men. And it's not guns, that's a tool. He could have done that, and he never did that. And to me, I find that to be a perverse tragedy, and there's a realm of reasons as why he and Michelle might have chosen not to do that. Maybe they thought they couldn't affect change. But wait a minute. Barack Obama's the guy who said, today is a day the ocean tides begin to reverse, begin to recede. This is a time our earth begins to heal. And it was about his presidency. He promised a messianic presence. They took all the pictures of Barack Obama where they always had halos behind him. Michelle Obama said Barack is going to push us past our limits. He's going to push us to change, hope and change. So it couldn't be that the Obamas, didn't think they could affect that change. They were busy with other things, seizing control of America's healthcare system on behalf of pharmaceutical companies. But they could have done it afterwards. They could have made that their focus or a focus. They could have made films about that instead of the film they did make about a dystopian society where stupid, inept white people who secretly want to have sex with black girls fail in the dystopia, whereas the wise and together black people have it all figured out. They could have used their media empire that somehow got built around them to go and address the things in Chicago and the other cities where young black men kill young black men. So she starts honest and then recedes into political posturing. Here's the clip that gets all the attention. Then we'll get to Jasmine Crockett, who, of course, was raised under the, at least from afar, tutelage and mentorship of Michelle Obama. This is the clip everyone's paying attention
I
to.
wanted to talk, Marlon, a bit about, just so proud of how you are being a role model for dealing with a child that's transgender.
Absolutely.
And that's, that warms my heart, particularly as a Black man.
Okay, just so we know, when she says that, she's touching her chest. Okay, that's where people are pointing at this and saying, oh, see? Now, I think she's addressing him. She knows that he's a Black man. I don't know how she knows that because, to my knowledge, she's never seen him naked, and you don't know what sex is until someone's naked. And even then, of course, operations.
Would you care to share that journey of?
Well, I learned.
So the answer is less important than the question. Probably the question's more important than the answer because people are paying attention to this and there's this proof. Well, it's not proof. It's a clumsy bit of conversation. But remember, her husband was the guy who, talking to George Stephanopoulos, said, John McCain has never questioned my Muslim faith. And George Stephanopoulos said, your Christian faith. And Barack Obama said, what? He goes, you said Muslim, you meant Christian. Oh, yeah, that's right, I'm a Christian. Yeah, I forgot. Jasmine Crockett, talking about mass deportation. Jasmine Crockett, of course, at least raised from afar with Michelle Obama as a political mentor.
As far as I'm concerned, you randomly kidnapping folk and you throwing them out of the country against their civil rights, against their constitutional rights. And frankly, how would they feel if some other country decided that they were going to just start throwing people randomly in our country? Like that is absolutely insane. So yes.
Wait. Okay, she's back to pretending to speak Ebonically. This woman who never did that, who went to $100,000 per year private school. And I continue to believe with my whole heart that Nancy Pelosi's told her, look, you can have a leadership position here. You can be a star. The camera loves you. You love the camera. You're a pretty woman, but you need to be more Black. But did you hear what she said? How would some other country feel if we just started dumping people into their country? See, there is such a thing as a Kinsley gaffe or politicians accidentally tell the truth. There's also such a thing as a Freudian slip. Jasmine Crockett is not stupid. She attempts to sound stupid because that's part of the act. She's not stupid. She knows that's been the tactic. And so I think it just slipped out. And praise God for causing these people to babble sometimes. Because in babble or babbling is clarity.